Okay, so this is going to be concerning episodes 3 and 4 of season 3 of Twin Peaks. Spoiler alert. I want to give a big shout out to somebody who is called Tachyon Time Lord 18, or no, just Tachyon Time Lord. He left a comment on my YouTube channel 18 hours ago, suggesting that his idea that is Bad Dale Cooper kills Major Briggs and gets control of the secret funding that Nixon set up with Dougie Milford for the listening post Alpha. And with these funds, Bad Dale builds a box so that Good Dale can't come back. And, well, Bad Dale can actually stay outside of the lodge. I think he's correct after seeing episodes 3 and 4 consecutively. Mainly because they are citing the Blue Rose Project quite a lot now. And for people who have actually seen, well, obviously, Firewalk with Me, the Blue Rose Project actually concerns higher-ups in the US government who are doing some kind of research about aliens and whatnot. And Major Briggs was a big part of that in season 2. The fact that we now know that Major Briggs has been killed in a mysterious fire only shortly after talking to Bad Dale kind of points the finger in Bad Dale's direction in terms of him killing off Major Briggs, perhaps. After obtaining the information, we know this obviously through his son, who's now a police officer, Bobby, which is not as surprising as I first thought, because he was, I do believe, at the end of season 2, becoming a lot more responsible with his life and trying to be better, due to his father really putting a foot down out of love and respect. So yeah, I think that his father's death obviously put Bobby further onto that road of redemption in terms of his morals and how he chose to conduct himself in the community. There's a lot to say about what I think about season 4, but I'll just go back to season 3 a bit. I liked the otherworldly place that's even further away from our own understanding of reality, in that Dale Cooper finds himself in some strange dimension with a woman with hardly any eyes, no eyes at all, covered in fact, reminding me a lot of Pan's Labyrinth. I think that's kind of intentional, especially when the alternate version of her, who had eyes, talks of him having to leave now before her mother returns. It was all very fairy tale, I thought. So that was lovely to see, like a different way of exploring a dimension where people talk or at least communicate in a very different way. I have to talk about Cooper coming back to Earth, or, well, whatever it is that looks like Cooper that isn't quite filled in, because he's quite blank and quite zombie-like, a lot like the bad guy at the end of Iron Fist, a Netflix program which you may or may not have seen, but he was walking around quite zombified after returning back from the dead. So maybe I should put some kind of spoiler for those who haven't seen Iron Fist, but then again, from what you've heard, it probably isn't as good and is not really worth your time. But hey, flame me in the comments if you must. But yeah, Cooper not necessarily knowing who he is or what he is actually quite jarring, because I'm used to him being like someone who I can actually count on in terms of knowing what's going on morally and also with the detective plot as well. But that being said, it is going on for quite a bit, and a good friend of mine, who may or may not want to be mentioned, but he did actually point out that Lynch's pace has gone a little bit awry. I'm willing to give it more of a chance, simply because there's a lot of weird pace in seasons 1 and 2. Except, of course, in 1 and 2, he's bound by the network's need to have a very cohesive plot and obviously keeping the time limit down. So, yeah, maybe my friend is right. Maybe Lynch has lost his grip of pace to an extent, because there were many times when I was irritated, not in a good way, about where the story was heading. As far as episode 4 goes, I do think that Lynch has often been able to justify the way he films and situates women, though I'm finding it more difficult than ever to forgive certain rationalizations that come about when I see women in the actual plot. They're either beating up prostitutes or they're very, very stupid, or they're obese and they're not quite with it, or they are in some way sexualized, like the Agent Preston. We get an unnecessary ass shot, which I suppose is supposed to be like a joke between men, but it just kind of made me think of locker room talk that we had earlier in the year via Donald Trump, which is a horrible kind of connection to make, because I love what Lynch has done in the past. As I said before, he seemed to justify it in many different ways, showing people in very weak positions can obviously be a way of having a comment on the power structure that they are forced to work within and the corruption of the men that they are serving under. And I suppose you could say the same thing is being done in this case, but it's only because I am referencing other narratives where he's done that purposefully. This time feels a little bit more exploitative. So that's my point of view, not coming from a malicious place, but simply what I have discovered in terms of my observation. I do think that the next episode could do with a speeding up of the pace, I think, because I'm conflicted. I like the idea that when you watch this kind of a narrative, you're not supposed to get all your answers straight away or be spoon-fed. I kind of like that, and the not knowing and the guessing and the wondering and the dreaming, because hey, stories should encourage that, shouldn't they? But that being said, I'm finding myself more than a little fearful that what we want is a nice bow at the end of all this, and I don't really think that that's something that our friend Lynch is compelled to deliver. And so there's going to be a lot of people, I think, let down when we reach the end, because I don't think there will be a tidy bow. I think there will be less questions, interesting ambiguity, and something that I could probably never predict, because I mean, we couldn't predict the end of this, really, could we? Anyway, as before, leave comments if you have anything to say that in some way I may have neglected to mention in this video. There's so much to comment on in these episodes that there's no way that I could think of everything to comment upon here in this video, because the longer the video is, the less likely you are to press play. So for those who did, thank you.